is a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. And it is a seminal book that has informed from casino design to your whole social media design, is based on the 6 principles of influence he illustrates in his book. There are 6 things. The first principle that he talks about, and I now, as I talk about these principles, I want you to don the hat of a policy designer. And let's say your goal is to, whether it is to improve vaccination, whether it is to improve access to education, whether it is to improve gender equity outcomes, whatever your area of advocacy or work is, I want you to think about that area or that work, that problem that you're passionate about, and see how you can apply these principles there. And then let's have a conversation. The first one is social proof. People are likely to respond positively when they see others respond positively. It's such a simple principle once you start thinking about it, but it's a stroke of genius to have actually thought about it and framed it this way. So all of us are aware of social proofing, right? So when you're browsing through a product catalog and you see 25 people have liked it, and you have very, very clear policy implications for this. When, let's say, you want to encourage tax compliance, right? What is the way to communicate the need for people to file their taxes? One thing could be a threat that if you do not do that, then there is going to be the taxman coming to your door. That's the way Indian state has largely framed its communication, because it has put itself on a pedestal and said, I'm going to be the parent which is going to monitor the child. But a better way, coming from a behavioral sciences sort of perspective, is, can you create an incentive based on social proof? Can you frame your communication that, in your area, 75% have filed their taxes and have gotten this benefit? What happens then? What is the message that's going to the citizen? That there are others who do not share my cynicism of the relationship that I share with the state. And there is social proof that filing taxes actually is something that is sanctioned as a social behavior. So think about your own area, whatever policy or public issue that you care about, and see how you can create a social proof in your area. The second principle is commitment. Right? Why do we have, why do we have these protocols where when people or institutions come together, why is there a photo op and handshake and activity to make it public? What is the purpose of that ritual? People are more likely to follow through when they make their commitment public. And that is logical, right? Because you do not want to be seen as going back on your word. There is honor. You might be very different as a person, but the fact that you are made to show a public commitment makes you a lot more amenable to actually following through. So when you design something and you map your stakeholders and you say, these are the 3 people that I need to influence to try and work my policy idea or work my problem solution through, what is the way that you can get a commitment from them? And it has to be subtle. If you make it forced, then it actually backfires. So there is a design and an aesthetic element there, right? The third principle of influence is reciprocation. People respond to favors that they receive. This is the principle of reciprocal altruism. So if you, a classic case of this is if you've ever had this experience of ISKCON, people standing at the, at the Chaurasta and trying to sell a copy of Bhagavad Gita to you in the 2 minutes that they get, right? What do? They first give you a free copy. So they create, or the classic marketing technique is to actually create a debt. Once that is there, you're more likely to respond to the sales pitch. You see this with street urchins, right? Unfortunate, but you see them. There are different ways in which they try and get your attention and try and make you give some money. Some of them obviously ask directly, but a lot of them today, if you stop your car or vehicle, they'll try and do something for you in that 1 minute, either clean your car shield or do something, because they're trying to create that reciprocity. Another very important principle for you when you think about your policy and your solution: what are the reciprocal mechanisms that you need to design, right? What is the way in which you create that bond or that debt? It can be seen as manipulative, but it is not if it is used with the right intentionality. That's why the whole idea of intentionality comes first before we get into principles or before we get into techniques, right? The fourth one, and I don't need to explain this, all of us are seeing an entire phenomenon based on this principle of liking. People are more committed to things that they like. If they demonstrate their liking publicly, then they are more likely to, if you create mechanisms for them to like, then you influence behaviors. And we've seen an entire product in Facebook just built on this principle, that I want to be liked, right? And it created a whole social phenomenon. So can you create mechanisms in your policy design, in your implementation plan, which will enable people to demonstrate the action that they've taken and be liked for it? The need to be liked is an inherent, inseparable part of being human. How do you use this human principle for better public outcomes? The fifth one is authority. Right? Authority is a bad word in the world of equality that we seem to imagine. But authority actually has a lot of influence. When you see somebody who is an expert in that area comment about a certain issue or endorse or reject a certain position, then you're speaking to authority and you get influenced by it. Right? There's a reason why Sunil Gavaskar can talk about cricket. Not, you and I can't go and comment, even if we know the sport, because there is authority there. The guy has scored 10,000 runs. So that it can also become a fallacy where you're only informed or, authority is invoked arbitrarily. But people do get influenced by authoritative figures. Right? And the last one is scarcity. If you create this illusion, or if there is genuine scarcity, and if you communicate that scarcity, then people are likely to respond. Any examples come to mind? All of us are consumers, digital consumers. All of us must have seen this.
So all those things like 30 minutes left for registration, book your ticket now, register now.
Yeah.
So any word which is now or timeline oriented creates a scarcity and impulse of taking the action soon.
Right. Anything that invokes a sense of urgency or a fear of missing out. Really, I mean, in a digital world, what is the fear of missing out? Because particularly digital commodities, I'm not talking about physical commodities, but digital commodities, there is no replication cost. It's an artificial scarcity. So all these principles are used quite extensively and quite effectively in game design. We used to put timers, and the timers have nice animation. We put a sale and we say this item is available only for the next 3 hours. Right? But for us, once we create that item, to replicate that item in a digital world is actually almost transaction cost free, because it's digital. That's the whole idea. It's not atoms, it's bits, right? But we understand that abundance is the enemy of commerce in that sense. So we try and in a game design, try and say, okay, this power that you need for this tournament is available at this price for the next 20 minutes. And we put a timer, we do a lot of bells and whistles around it. Now, how can this principle be used, or how can this principle influence a positive public policy outcome?